Ladies, today, we are dissecting an absolute masterclass in financial warfare and high society savagery. Usually, the guy pulls the classic, "You are too independent, she needs me more" card, and the woman runs out of the room crying. But Stella didn't shed a single tear when her fiancé dumped her for a girl whose entire existence was funded by Stella's own charity. Instead, she smiled, agreed to the breakup, and immediately handed him a $30 million invoice. This is a story about the absolute delusion of mediocre men who think they can bite the hand that feeds them while still expecting 3 meals a day. It's about trading in a fragile, insecure boy for a ruthless Wall Street king who actually matches your energy. Let's get into the wreckage. Hunter walked into the resplendent Manor ballroom, holding the hand of that girl who could only afford to go to school because of funding from my family's charitable foundation. At this dinner gathering all the top elites of the East Coast, he rejected his engagement to me in front of everyone. "Stella, you're a high Dan mighty heiress of a financial empire. I'm not worthy of you," he said with righteous conviction, pulling the girl beside him into his arms protectively. "Bianca needs me more than you do." The girl named Bianca was wearing a cheap, fast Jan fashion evening dress. Her frail body was trembling slightly in the air conditioning, her dry hair hanging loose, and only those eyes, like a startled fawn's, timidly swept over the rich people around her. I stood quietly beneath the crystal chandelier, looking at this man and woman who fancied themselves true love, and the corner of my mouth suddenly curled into a cold sneer that even I myself hadn't noticed, because I was reborn. In my previous life, faced with this kind of humiliation from him, I took both families' reputations into account and only asked flatly, "Are you sure?" Just because of that sentence, Bianca felt I was using my power and status to oppress her, and she ran out of the ballroom crying, only to be accidentally hit by a car and have both her legs broken. With red eyes, Hunter grabbed my shoulders and roared, "Your arrogance is what hurt her. I'll make sure you pay the price." Later, he not only broke off the engagement, but also secretly colluded with my family's business archenemy. Using my trust in him, he fabricated financial loopholes and completely brought down my family's century-old foundation. My parents died in a plane crash under the blow of bankruptcy, and I was driven out of the mansion by him, dying alone on the freezing street in despair and serious illness. It wasn't until my last breath that I understood. The inferiority buried deep in his bones made him desperately want to destroy me, his lofty benefactor. And now, heaven has given me a chance to start over, and time has returned right to the beginning of all this tragedy, the 70th birthday banquet of the old master of the Thorne family, and also the day that was originally meant to announce the business-marriage alliance between our two families. The Thorne family are nothing more than nouveau riches who barely squeezed into the top circle by relying on the resources of our Stella family. For them, this marriage alliance was basically like winning a lottery ticket that let them leap across class. None of the guests present had expected Hunter to suddenly lose his mind. Old Master Thorne had just raised his champagne glass and, beaming all over, said, "I'm very honored that everyone could grace my humble home with your presence. What makes me even happier tonight is that I'm going to announce the joyful news of the engagement between my grandson Hunter and Miss Stella, the sole heir of the Stella family, before the applause could even start." Hunter's eager voice, tinged with anger, cut through everything. "Grandpa, I don't agree." He straightened his back like a warrior fighting a dragon. "I said it before. In this life, Bianca is the only woman I'll ever marry. No matter who disagrees, it won't change a thing." Old Mr. Thorne froze for a second, then trembled with rage and viciously smashed the wine glass in his hand at Hunter's feet. "You idiot! What nonsense are you spouting?" Glass shards flew everywhere. Hunter neither dodged nor flinched. Instead, he looked at me with a firm, even, provocative gaze. "Stella, the one I love is Bianca. I hope you can." "No need to hope." I cut him off with a smile. Me voice wasn't loud, but it rang clearly through the utterly silent banquet hall, gracefully swirling the champagne in my hand. I looked at his stunned expression and said, "Word by word, I'll grant your wish. You two really do look perfect together. Practically a match made in heaven. Everyone here has surely been moved by this innocence of yours, the kind that would throw away even your family's bottom line for the sake of love. When you get married, please be sure to send me an invitation. I'll definitely prepare a generous gift." I looked at Hunter's face, now showing a bit of bewilderment because I had let go so readily, and the curve of my lips widened a little more. "But since love is so noble, to avoid everyone misunderstanding that I'm still using money to keep tangling with you, Hunter, that 30 million USD bridge loan I lent you last month in my personal capacity for cash flow on your tech project, because of what you did today, has already seriously violated the morals clause we signed. By 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, cough it up for me, principal, interest, and the penalty fee included. No problem, right?" Hunter's playing the romantic martyr, claiming that his true love for Bianca is worth sacrificing his family's business empire. He expects Stella to cry. He expects her to beg. Instead, Stella legally repos his entire reality. This is the ultimate paradox of the fragile male ego. Men like Hunter love to make grand dramatic sacrifices for their innocent mistresses, as long as their wealthy fiancés are quietly footing the bill. He genuinely thought he could publicly humiliate his personal ATM and still make a withdrawal tomorrow morning. The audacity is actually staggering. When Stella invokes that morals clause, she isn't just asking for her money back. She is surgically castrating herself, made persona in front of every billionaire in New York. She reminds him, and everyone else in that room, that his lofty, arrogant spine was entirely bought and paid for by her family's trust fund. "You want to be a savior. Hunter, great. Fund it yourself." I agreed, so readily that it not only made the powerful people present suck in a sharp breath, but also made Hunter freeze completely on the spot. His face went from green to white, and obvious panic flashed through his eyes. "Stella, we've always worked together very pleasantly before, and my project is at a critical stage right now." Hunter's tone softened, trying to use his usual fake tenderness to cover up his guilty conscience. "There is no need to cancel our business cooperation over a small private matter of feelings." "Right." I let out a light sigh, handed the champagne glass to the waiter beside me, and looked at him like he was trash. "Mr. Hunter, do you have some kind of cognitive impairment?" My voice carried the absolute pressure of someone in power. In this hall, how many CEOs of multinational corporations are lining up wanting to get my funding? Why did I pick your project back then? One that could start losing money at any moment. On Wall Street, there are plenty of people better than you, more reasonably valued than you. If it weren't for the sake of us having known each other since childhood and being engaged, what couldn't I have done with that huge sum of money if I'd thrown it into the sea? At least I'd have heard a splash, lending it to you. All I feel now is disgust. Hunt's face went deathly pale in an instant. He clenched his teeth hard, clearly not expecting that I, who had always been gentle and refined, and had never said a harsh word to him, would, right in front of the entire upper class of the metropolis, mercilessly tear his fig leaf to shreds. The guests around us all showed looks of enjoying the show, and in the eyes of those old Jan Money elites, who had already looked down on the nouveau riche style of the Thorn family. The mockery was even more obvious, the hand hanging at his side, clenched tightly into a fist. Yet he still put on a tolerant and magnanimous front. "Stella, you're still as willful as ever. I know you're angry right now. Please shut up." I cut him off coldly. "Do me a favor, and don't talk to me in that greasy, self-righteous tone ever again. I'm afraid my future partner might hear it, and mistakenly think my taste used to be unbelievably awful. That would be the real disaster for me." Hunt was left speechless by my retort. At that moment, Bianca, who had been hiding in his arms, finally couldn't hold back any more. With reddened eyes, she put on the look of a pitiful, innocent victim and spoke in a weak voice. "Miss Stella, matters of the heart can't be forced. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Just don't blame Brother Hunter. He is innocent. I'm the one who don't deserve the scholarship you gave me." I looked her up and down once. The tag on that fast-yan fashion dress was still faintly visible. "Oh, he is innocent." I raised an eyebrow, my gaze sweeping over Bianca like ice blades. "Bianca, back then, I personally approved your spot in the family foundation, fully funding you through that expensive private university. I thought I was sponsoring a hard-working, eager den-to-den learn, independent woman who wanted to change her fate through knowledge. Who would have thought your shortcut to crossing class lines was to climb straight into your sponsor's fiancé's bed?" Hunter's face instantly flushed bright red, and he waved his hands in a panic, trying to cover up the embarrassment. "Stella, don't be so harsh. Bianca has never been after my money. We're truly in love, not after your money. Then is she, after this pathetic, flustered, weak look you have right now." I looked at him with a half-Jan smile, my eyes cold. Any normal person knows what gratitude and boundaries mean, taking the Stella family's money while secretly carrying on with my fiancé behind my back. This kind of treacherous, faithless little show is really something else. Bianca hurriedly tried to clear Hunter's name, huge tears rolling down her face as she put on the pitiful look of an innocent victim. "Miss Stella, you really misunderstood. Hunter and I really just couldn't help ourselves. We've always stayed within proper bounds. And only recently did we realize how we truly feel about each other. If you want to scold someone, scold me. He didn't do anything wrong." I let out a snort of laughter, and it sounded especially harsh in the quiet banquet hall. "I see. Taking my sponsorship money while still flaunting your love as pure and spotless. Hunter, you'd rather give up a marriage alliance between equal families and insist on choosing a manipulative gold digger who can only stand here because of my charity. Your taste and your so-called true love are both so cheap it is laughable." The more frantically they tried to explain, the more it confirmed the fact that Hunter was faithless and Bianca repaid kindness with betrayal. Everyone present was a sharp player who had fought their way through this arena of fame and fortune, who couldn't see the shady business behind this, throwing away the daughter of a top financial dynasty, and for a thankless charity case, not even caring about keeping up appearances anymore. This would become a high-den society joke that Hunter and the Thorn family would never be able to wash away. I moved my gaze away from this pair of star-crossed lovers, swept my eyes around the guests present, and declared in a ringing voice, "Everyone, sorry for making a spectacle of us tonight. From this moment on, my engagement to Mr. Hunt is officially annulled. Any cooperation between the Stella family and him also ends here. From now on. Your road is your road. My bridge is my bridge, and we'll have nothing to do with each other." After saying that, I paid no attention to Hunt's deathly pale face, lifted the hem of my haute couture gown, stepped on my 7 centimeter red soled heels, and strode out of the banquet hall. Why should I, like in my previous lives, swallow my anger for some called family dignity? And why should I save face for this scumbag? I want the entire East Coast circle of the powerful and wealthy to know that I, Stella, dumped Hunt. And I also want everyone who originally depended on our family to see clearly which side they should stand on. As I walked out the doors, a flurry of footsteps rang out behind me. Those top tycoons, politicians, and socialites who had only come to the birthday banquet out of respect for the Stella family naturally followed my lead and left without the slightest hesitation. In an instant, the originally bustling, luxurious banquet hall was directly emptied by 2 Gen-3rds. The ones left behind were nothing more than some insignificant fringe figures. I had just reached the fountain by the manor when I heard old Master Thorne's furious roar and the crisp sound of a slap coming from the hall. Late that night, my parents took a private jet overnight from Europe back to our estate on Long Island. Tow them! No matter how important the energy merger and acquisition deal in Europe was, it still couldn't compare to their only precious daughter of the Stella family being wronged. Stella, my sweetie, what exactly happened? Mother was wearing an elegant silk robe, her face full of worry. Father, meanwhile, placed a hand on my shoulder, his tone steady, yet carrying the dominance of someone at the top. You've always had your own mind since you were little. If you've decided to call off the engagement, then just do it. Whatever the consequences, even if it means destroying the Thorne family, Mom and Dad will cover for you. This was the ultimate capital that let me do whatever I wanted in that Vanity Fair. The Stella family had been passed down for 100 years, and in my generation, I was the only heir to the trust fund, truly the one everyone revolved around. Dad, Mom, since Hunter is so damn backbone. I leaned against the velvet sofa, absent-mindedly playing with my freshly done nails. I think the Thorne Group's recent tech projects on the West Coast are pretty good. How about we carry out a hostile takeover directly and kick them out of the game? My parents exchanged a glance and froze slightly for a few seconds. Mom said gently, Stella, of course we fully support you. It is just that your grandfather had some old ties with old Mr. Thorne back then. If we directly force the Thorne family into bankruptcy, the board's side may need some high-gen-sounding reasons. I frowned slightly, then relaxed. Fine. Then let's leave old Mr. Thorne a bit of dignity for now. But Hunter can forget about keeping his seat as heir to the Thorne Group. Among this generation of the Thorne family, are there any other candidates who are at least a little more outstanding? My parents almost said the same name in unison. Harrison. Only then did I learn from my parents about a secret episode in the Thorne family's past. Actually, the one old Mr. Thorne originally had in mind to marry into my family wasn't Hunter, but his eldest grandson Harrison. Harrison's mother was a true old Gen Money aristocratic socialite, dignified and elegant. But later, Hunter's father cheated, and that woman from the lower class not only successfully took her place, but even brought the young Hunter into the house with her. Harrison's mother came from an orthodox European aristocratic family. She didn't cry or make a scene. Instead, she directly filed for divorce with a top gen-tier legal team, took away nearly a third of the Thorne Group's cash flow at the time, and flew back to London with Harrison. It was precisely because of this sky-den high divorce scandal and the withdrawal of funds that the Thorne family nearly went bankrupt. Only then did old Mr. Thorne shamelessly go beg my grandfather, and relying on the old ties between the two families, set up my engagement to Hunter to stabilize the Thorne family's position. A dragon gives birth to a dragon. A phoenix gives birth to a phoenix. Mother sighed. Harrison inherited his mother's excellent genes. Both his character and his brains are far from ordinary. I got Harrison's private number and sent a short text directly. Are you free to meet tomorrow, Stella? In less than a minute, the text replied. Tomorrow isn't very convenient. Tomorrow is Harvard Business School's graduation ceremony, and as the behind the scenes founder of a Wall Street hedge fund, they invited me to give the opening speech. Is the day after tomorrow okay? I raised an eyebrow. Ok. See you the day after tomorrow. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll win every battle. After confirming the time, I had my assistant pull all of Harrison's background information. Looking at that thick fei sum fei, even as a tycoon's daughter with absurdly high standards, I couldn't help clicking my tongue in secret. Harrison wasn't active in New York's circle of socialites and rich playboys, so I had always thought he was just an ordinary person marginalized by his family. But I was dead wrong. He was the mysterious Muho Laoban of several top quantitative hedge funds on Wall Street, relying entirely on his own intelligence. He had built a capital empire that made people shudder. For the first time, I felt a kind of equal matching pressure from someone my own age. Propping up an idiot and putting him in power is easy to control. But cooperating with a dangerous top predator like Harrison, that is playing with fire, but that only made me even more excited. Sorry, the flight from London to New York hit some turbulence, so I'm 5 minutes late. Along with a deep, magnetic British, accented English voice. A man nearly 1.90 meters tall walked into this high-end Michelin restaurant, perched above the clouds in Manhattan. He was wearing a perfectly tailored Savile Row bespoke suit, and on his high bridged nose rested a pair of gold rimmed glasses. His whole person gave off an abstinent yet refined air. Holding a fresh bouquet of sunflowers in one hand, he bent slightly at the waist and apologized to me like a gentleman. Outside the floor-to-jan ceiling windows, Manhattan's sunset glow spilled across his profile. And Harrison was so handsome, he looked like some godly poster stepped right out of Vogue magazine. I took the sunflowers and gave him a flawless socialite smile. It's okay. I just got here too. You rushed back from London. Harrison took the host's seat opposite me, his deep set eyes fixed on me. Yes, I caught last night's last red eye flight out of Heathrow. Meeting those eyes of his that looked gentle, yet seemed able to see through everything, I actually felt a moment of awkwardness. Harrison, I don't think you need to feel any psychological burden. I reached out to you on my own initiative. It's a win-win deal. His long fingers lightly rubbed the rim of the water glass, his voice so low, it was like a bow drawing across cello strings. I'm very happy that you took the initiative to contact me, Stella. Clearly, we hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years. Yet the way he said, my name was so familiar and warm. I gently swirled the burgundy wine glass and got straight to the point. So, do you know why I came to you? Harrison smiled faintly and pushed up his gold rimmed glasses. Of course. At the birthday banquet, the day before yesterday, Hunter openly embarrassed you over some lower class girl. Then, as soon as the market opened yesterday, Thorn Group's stock wiped out $1 billion straight away. You're a proud girl. There's no way you'd keep tolerating him. But because of the old friendship between the two family patriarchs, you didn't destroy Thorn Group directly. Instead, you chose me, this substitute, to replace him, right? Talking to a smart person really does save effort, I asked bluntly. So, are you interested in this substitute position? Harrison nodded. If it were before, I really wouldn't have thought much of the Thorn family's pitiful little business. But now, since I came all this way back, I'm naturally interested." I stared at him with some curiosity. "With the position you have on Wall Street now, even without my help, taking over Thorn Group would be as easy as flipping your hand, wouldn't it?" Harrison leaned forward slightly. The eyes hidden behind his lenses shimmered with a dangerous and charming light. He looked straight at me and said meaningfully, "Because the thing I really wanted to get only became single again the night before last." My heart skipped a beat. So in this game, while I thought I was using him, in his eyes, I was the prey he had been watching for a long time. I curled my red lips and met his gaze without the slightest sign of backing down. "Then let's see whether you, this Wall Street capitalist, have what it takes to swallow a tough bone like me." Early the next morning, I changed into an exquisitely tailored vintage tweed haute couture suit and had the driver take me to the Thorn family's estate on Long Island. This was both giving old Mr. Thorn a way to save face, and even more so, going to back Harrison up. And while I was at it, I'd thoroughly discussed Hunter too, so he'd understand clearly, without the halo I gave him, in the eyes of these real aristocrats, he wasn't even worth a fart. When the Thorn family's butler saw me, his attitude was even more respectful than before, almost fawning, and he immediately invited me into the sunroom dining room. When old Mr. Thorn saw me, that taut old face of his instantly bloomed into a flower of a smile. Seated on his right had originally been Hunter. By the usual custom, I would always sit beside Hunter. Seeing this, Hunter quite naturally shifted over one seat to the side. I smiled faintly, stepped past Hunter in my high heels, and went straight to Harrison's side at the very end of the long table, in the farthest corner. "Set my tableware over here by Harrison." I turned and elegantly instructed the butler. I heard Harrison had returned to the country, so I made a special trip over today to visit him. So under my deliberate arrangement, Harrison's seat went straight from the most overlooked edge to old Mr. Thorn's left Jan-hand side, sitting face Jan-to-Jan face with Hunter. Hunter's expression looked awful, those eyes fixed on me with grievance and anger. I picked up my coffee cup and took a sip, then looked at Hunter across from me with a half-Jan smile. "Oh right, Hunter, the 30 million in my account, plus the penalty fee did indeed come in this morning. Looks like you had to borrow loan shark money just to barely plug this hole, huh?" Hunter's face instantly flushed to a liverish red, yet he couldn't say a single word in rebuttal. I didn't spare him even a sideways glance again, and instead smiled as I motioned for the servant to pour tea for Harrison. "Harrison, he even saw your exclusive interview in the Wall Street Journal 2 days ago. The mastermind behind a top-10 quant fund. Really impressive. I've admired people with high IQs since I was little. From now on, I should have afternoon tea with you more often, and soak up some of that Wall Street elite aura on you." Old Mr. Thorn revealed an extremely shocked expression. He had never been close to this eldest grandson left behind by his ex-Dan wife in the first place. And now that he learned his own grandson was actually a big shot in the financial world, as a profit-Jan-driven businessman, he immediately started making new calculations in his heart. The old man took the initiative to speak. "Harrison, since you've decided to come back to New York, then don't just sit around at home. Go report to the group's headquarters tomorrow and join the board of directors." Hunt completely panicked this time, and the knife and fork in his hands clanged against the plate with a shrill sound. "Grandpa, he just got back to the country. He should adapt to the environment first. Besides, he doesn't understand our group's actual business operations or corporate management at all." Harrison picked up the spotless white napkin and elegantly wiped the corner of his mouth, letting out a soft chuckle. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute pressure. By the way, I hold dual doctorates in macroeconomics and business management. Although Thorn Group's business lacks a bit of challenge for me, I imagine it wouldn't be hard to take over. Hunt's face immediately fell, and the jealousy and panic in his eyes were practically spilling over. I picked up my coffee and was just about to drink it, but Harrison suddenly reached out with his long fingers and pushed the cup of freshly made caramel macchiato in front of him, over to me, smoothly swapping away my black coffee. "Drink mine instead." There was a hint of gentle amusement in the eyes behind his lenses. "It has whole milk and caramel in it, so it is not bitter." Seeing this, Hunt immediately acted like he'd grabbed some kind of leverage and let out a disdainful sneer. "Harrison, you don't understand Stella at all. To keep her figure and stay clear gen-headed. Like a socialite. She never drinks coffee with sugar." Harrison slightly raised his brows and made as if to take the coffee back. But I directly reached out and pressed my hand onto his wrist, the one wearing a Patek Philippe watch. I looked at Harrison with a gentle smile. I really didn't like drinking it before, but now I've suddenly become willing to try a different taste. I picked up that cup of caramel macchiato and took a sip. I set the cup down with a smile. "It tastes great from now on. Please add milk and caramel to my coffee." If just now I was only backing Harrison up, then now, in front of everyone, I was openly and blatantly taking his side. After breakfast, Harrison and I were getting ready to go stroll along Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. We had just reached the Roman den-columned porch of the manor when Hunter suddenly darted out from the side and blocked our way. "Harrison, I need to talk to Stella alone." "Step aside for a minute first," Hunter ordered through gritted teeth. Harrison didn't pay him any attention at all, and just lowered his head to look at me. Only after I gave a slight nod did he gentlemanly step back half a pace and walk over to wait beside that black Aston Martin. "Stella, Harrison is no good person at all. On Wall Street, he is known as the cold, gen-blooded butcher. Stay away from him." Hunter lowered his voice, trying to put on a deeply affectionate act, like he was doing it for my own good. I crossed my arms and looked at him with a half-gen smile. "Oh, how is he not a good person? Because his IQ is too high, or because, unlike you, after enjoying your fiancé's resources for 20 years, he didn't suddenly turn around and go play savior to some scheming gold gen digger." Hunt got hit right where it hurt, the muscles in his face twitching for a moment, but he still forced his voice softer. "Stella, although I've always regarded you as the one most worthy of respect, in my heart, you're too powerful. You're different from Bianca. She has nothing but me. She is too fragile. I know that deep down you're the kindest. You'll understand and forgive me right, in my previous life." He'd used this kind of pure rhetoric countless times. It wasn't until the moment I died on the street that I realized he was just enjoying that twisted thrill of being depended on by the weak, while also controlling the strong. I let out a merciless cold laugh. "Hunt, guess why your brother, who was doing just fine in London, was suddenly called back to New York by me. Doe, you know." The moment Harrison appeared in front of me, wearing that custom Jan-made suit, I knew exactly how thoroughly you'd lost. He completely matches my type. Whether it is education, capability, conversation, or that face of his, he completely outclasses you. I looked at his gradually falling, apart expression, and pronounced the verdict word by word. "So, Hunt, you're out. If calling me Miss Stella feels too distant from now on, I don't mind if you start practicing in advance. Address me respectfully as the future Mrs. Thorne." My voice wasn't quiet, and Harrison, standing not far away, heard every single word clearly. leaning against the sports car, roan hand tucked into the pocket of his dress pants, the corner of his mouth lifted into a brilliant and dangerous smile. Hunter, thoroughly provoked by me, held it in for ages before finally forcing out a sentence through clenched teeth. "Stella, how did you become so shallow and snobbish now?" I let out a mocking laugh. "Yeah, when I fell for you back then, I really was pretty shallow." After saying that, I couldn't be bothered to spare him another glance, and strode straight toward Harrison. No denying it, Hunter was fairly sunny and handsome for a rich second gen, but in front of someone like Harrison, who carried a natural alpha aura and the deep, restrained presence of a king, he looked like some college boy who hadn't even fully grown up yet. Harrison bent slightly and opened the sports car door for me. Smiling in those deep gen-set eyes, he said in a low voice, "I liked what you said just now, the future Mrs. Thorne. You can say it more often from now on." I chuckled softly. "It is not impossible. That'll depend on how you perform next." Before closing the car door, Harrison gave me a long, deep look. "Of course, I'll show you what real sincerity looks like." Even though I'd never underestimated Harrison, I still didn't expect him to give me a huge surprise, far beyond what I'd imagined. After parachuting in, Harrison used thunderous methods to purge the management in just half a month. With a unanimous vote from the board, Harrison shot straight up to become the group's co-gen CEO. And in terms of real power, he had already completely hollowed out Hunter's authority. Hunter completely panicked. Through a secret channel, he got wind of some insider news. New York City was planning to relocate the tech hub to the northern suburbs, where a large stretch of abandoned industrial land was about to go up for an internal auction. Once he got his hands on it, it'd be a guaranteed fortune. Like he was grabbing onto a lifeline, he secretly scraped together a huge amount of money, ready to go all in. At this moment, Harrison and I were sitting in a second Dan-floor VIP box at the most exclusive underground private auction venue in the entire United States. Through the one-way glass, we could clearly see that down in the main hall, Hunter was sitting in the regular bidding section with Bianca. Harrison had taken off his suit jacket and was wearing only a fitted dress shirt. He looked at me curiously. "You specifically blew off an international video conference to ask me here, so it can't be just to buy a few paintings, right?" I leaned back against the velvet sofa, lightly fanning the folding fan in my hand, and said with a smile, "Of course not. Seeing how firmly you've settled into the CEO position, I'm planning to give you a big gift today so you can completely get rid of the word joint." The auction officially began, for truly old Gen Money families. The early lots were just appetizers, but for a girl like Bianca, who had only just stepped onto the fringes of high society, just hearing the starting prices was enough to make her eyes shine. Bags and small jewelry worth over $100,000. Hunter naturally picked up the tab for her without a second thought. I leaned back on the velvet sofa, having my assistant follow along and raise the paddle, as long as it was something Bianca had her eye on. I had my assistant jack the price up 2 to 3 times, forcing Bianca to bid on it at an insanely inflated price. When the next lot, a rare emerald necklace from Van Cleef Arpels' Centennial Archive collection with a starting price of $3 million, was brought up, I had my assistant raise the paddle first. When the price reached $5 million, the hall fell silent. Bianca thought I really wanted it, and immediately gritted her teeth and raised her paddle. $5,200,000. I followed without the slightest hesitation. $5,500,000. A smug little smile of petty triumph lifted on her face. $5,600,000. I stood up, walked to the glass in front of the private box, put on an arrogant smile that said I was bound to win, and personally raised the paddle, 6 million. That smile deeply stabbed Bianca's fragile self-esteem. She practically shouted on reflex, 6,100,000. Hunter suddenly realized what was happening and reached out to stop her. But it was already too late. The price had already been confirmed by the auctioneer. Harrison let out a low chuckle beside me, spending over 6 million on a necklace marked up by double. When he goes back, the board's bunch of old fossils are definitely going to chew him the fuck out. I curled my red lips into a smile, my gaze turning cold and sharp in an instant. Don't underestimate me. If it were just this kind of cheap trick, why would I need to trouble you to come here in person? When that final finale piece of industrial land in the northern suburbs appeared on the screen, Harrison understood at once. He adjusted his gold Dan-rimmed glasses, and the way he looked at me was filled with extreme admiration and a trace of shuddering fear. Even 10 hunters put together wouldn't match half your scheming. From the very first day I came back to New York, your plan was already closing the net, wasn't it? The bidding was extremely intense. The false news I had the PR team quietly leak 3 months ago, that the city government was about to relocate north, was now hitting Hunter right between the eyes. Hunter shot straight to his feet and shouted loudly, 250 million. I lazily raised my paddle, 300 million. When Hunter, eyes bloodshot, hysterically shouted, 390 million. I smiled and set down my paddle. When I walked out of the auction hall, Hunter was already waiting by the Rolls-Royce. He forced himself to keep up that arrogant look, and his tone was smug as hell. Stella, your only chance to beat me is already gone. Do you know who leaked that information to me? It was someone from the planning bureau. Just then, his phone started vibrating like crazy. The moment he picked up, old Mr. Thorne's roaring voice nearly shattered the receiver. You damn idiot. Who gave you permission to spend Senbai Joshiyuni Lion on a piece of worthless land? City Hall just released a notice. The area next to that plot has been designated a National Dan-level wetland protection zone, and absolutely no commercial or industrial development is allowed within 10 kilometers. You bought a wilderness where nothing can be built. Get your ass back here right now. I need this scene framed and hung in the Museum of Modern Art. This is what happens when a man whose only talent is spending a woman's money tries to play 3D chess with the woman who actually owns the board. Hunter was so desperate to prove he didn't need Stella that he bypassed all logic, embezzled corporate funds, and bid $390 million on a piece of land just to beat her. But Stella didn't just outbid him. She leaked fake insider info, manipulated his ego, and then quietly bought the surrounding woodland to trigger a federal environmental ban. It is flawless, zero-calorie, high-protein vengeance. The call was hung up viciously. Hunter was completely dumbfounded. Almost at the same time, Harrison's private phone rang too. It was still old Mr. Thorne, but his tone had already become extremely humble and gentle. Harrison, come to the group headquarters right away. The board is holding an emergency meeting, and all your uncles are waiting for you to come take charge. Okay, grandfather. I'll be there right away. Harrison calmly hung up the phone. Only now did Hunter finally realize what was going on. Eyes bloodshot, he pointed at me. Stella, you set all this up, didn't you? In a furious rage, he swung his fist, trying to hit me. Harrison, meanwhile, pulled a document from the inside pocket of his suit and lightly tossed it at Hunter's feet. This is the Wetlands and Endangered Species Habitat Protection ban just issued by the State Department of Environmental Conservation State Deck. In the name of the Stella Family Foundation, I lobbied the environmental groups and bought the surrounding woodland to complete an ecological donation. On that piece of land it is illegal now even to build a public restroom. Harrison tilted his head slightly toward me and said in a low voice, I told you, we were never going to be opponents. It is my honor to hand you the knife. Bang. The moment he finished speaking, Harrison threw an extremely professional, clean right cross straight into Hunter's face. Hunter let out a miserable scream and crashed to the ground like a heap of mush, blood pouring from his nose. Harrison looked down at him from above, all his usual refinement gone, his eyes so cold it was like he was looking at a rat in the sewer. Never act up in front of my woman. I'm not nearly as merciful as my mother was back then. Got it. Harrison's offhand remark made deep fear surge instantly into Hunter's eyes. Clutching his bleeding nose, he scrambled and crawled away from the scene. After getting into the Aston Martin, Harrison took off those gold jan-rimmed glasses, and the sharp, issy killing intent around him gradually faded. But when he turned to look at me, his gaze became deep and gentle again. Should I take you for top 10 grade white truffles first, or drive you back to the office first? I blinked. Wasn't grandfather urging you to rush back to headquarters to put out the fire? He let out a careless little chuckle and started the sports car. The moment something goes wrong, they count on me to go back and play savior. Let them wait anxiously a little longer, so they can see clearly who the real master is. Right. I took a sealed document pouch out of my Herm phase bag and held it out to him. Harrison opened the pouch, took one look, and his gaze suddenly tightened. It was Bifinger's share of Thorn Group's unrestricted voting original shares. To quietly acquire these scattered shares, I used a huge amount of the Stellar family's hidden resources. This gift is far too valuable. Stella, you've practically placed Thorn Group's lifeline in my hands. He looked at me deeply. I leaned closer to him, looked into his deep eyes, and said with a soft smile, This means that from today on, you're no longer that exiled eldest grandson, but the one and only king of this business empire. Go, me majesty, go take back everything that belongs to you. Harrison bent down and placed a kiss on my forehead. Tone so restrained, yet full of the meaning of a vow. Wait for me to come back, my queen. That afternoon at the Thorn Group headquarters building, Harrison pushed open the doors to the top 10 floor conference room and slammed the document I had given him, along with his own equity subscription agreement, onto the table with a bang. Directors. Harrison's voice wasn't loud, but it carried with tremendous force. I currently hold Bifinger Wusha of Thorn Group's absolute voting shares. I propose that we immediately initiate bankruptcy ring den fencing procedures, classify all of Hunt Thorn's debt den related actions in this auction as personal misconduct, and strip him of all positions within the group. Not only will the group not repay a single cent for him, it will also pursue criminal liability against him for embezzling public funds. The moment those words were spoken, the whole room fell deathly silent. Old Master Thorn went limp in the wide, genuine leather seat. He finally understood that the Stellar family had not only called off the marriage alliance, but had also joined forces with his eldest grandson to completely usurp the Thorn family's power. Hunt was completely bankrupt. To fill the hole from the embezzled public funds, in hopes of getting a lighter sentence, Old Master Thorn coldly took back all the assets he had given the mother and son, drove them back to Brooklyn's most run-down neighborhood, and turned them into the eternal laughingstock of high society. And when Hunt dragged his suitcase and, in a wretched state, knocked on the door of Bianca's luxury apartment, what greeted him was not Bianca's heartbroken tears, but a merciless slap. Who wants to eat street food with you? Bianca shoved him away like she was avoiding the plague. What I like are your black cards and sports cars. That Liu Denyi Yunli lion necklace from last night has already been taken back by the auction house because you couldn't pay the balance. You don't even have the ability to leave me something to remember you by. So what true love are you even talking about? Take your crappy luggage and get the hell out. The spectacular, inevitable collapse of the White Lotus illusion. Hunter threw away a century-old financial dynasty because he convinced himself that Bianca was pure. He romanticized her poverty. He thought that because she wore cheap dresses and cried a lot, her love was somehow more authentic than Stella's. He loved how weak Bianca was, because it made his mediocre self feel like a god. But here is the brutal reality about women who target engaged, wealthy men. They aren't looking for a soulmate. They are looking for a sponsor. The very second Hunter's black card declined, Bianca's innocent, startled fawn routine evaporated. She didn't want to struggle with him. She didn't want to build an empire from scratch. She wanted the $6.1 million necklace that he could no longer afford. Back then, for this girl, Hunter didn't hesitate to offend me. A top socialite, and even gave up his entire business empire. Now, cruel reality had given him the loudest slap in the face. 3 years later, Manhattan, New York, the luxurious duplex penthouse at the top of the tallest tower on Wall Street. Over these 3 years, Harrison used his extremely formidable business tactics to complete the full merger of the Thorn Group with the European capital under his name. And I also officially took over the massive trust of the Stella family. The powerful alliance of the two great families stirred up a capital storm on Wall Street and built a new empire that could not be shaken. I was wearing a silver deep Dan V couture starlight gown, holding a glass of champagne as I stood before the floor gen-to-gen ceiling window, looking down over the empire beneath my feet. Suddenly, a pair of warm, big hands wrapped around my waist from behind. Harrison gently rested his chin in the hollow of my neck, and his cool, woody scent completely enveloped me. He suddenly stepped back half a pace and dropped to one knee. Up here in the clouds overlooking all of Manhattan, this man, who made countless financial tycoons tremble in fear, was like the most devout believer, taking a black velvet box out of his suit pocket. Inside the box was a flawlessly cut the blue moon. Queen Stella, are you willing to let this night become your one and only lawful partner for this lifetime? I looked at him, my eyes growing slightly hot, but a proud smile bloomed at the corners of my lips. Granted. In this top-10-tier world of fame and fortune, filled with schemes and benefit, only an evenly matched love can last, and only hunters who are just as powerful and cold deserve each other's souls. The bankruptcy crisis and betrayal of the past had long since turned to ashes, and now this was the moment of our coronation. Only hunters who are just as powerful and cold deserve each other's souls. Ladies, let's get comfortable and really unpack this, because Stella's journey hits a nerve that so many of us try to ignore. How many of us have shrunk ourselves to make a man feel bigger? How many times have you downplayed your promotion, your paycheck, or your intelligence because the guy you were dating felt emasculated? By your success, Hunter is the ultimate cautionary tale of the insecure male ego. He was handed the golden ticket, a brilliant, wealthy, loyal fiancée, but instead of rising to her level, he resented her for it. He couldn't handle being in a partnership with an equal. So he went out and found a charity case he could control. He disguised his deep-seated inferiority complex as protecting the weak. But the real takeaway here isn't Hunter's pathetic downfall. It's Harrison. Harrison is the absolute blueprint of what a secure, high-value man looks like. When Harrison looked at Stella, he didn't see a woman who was too much. He didn't feel threatened by her money or her ruthless intellect. He looked at her, orchestrating a multi-million, corporate trap and thought, God, she is magnificent. He didn't want a woman he could rescue. He wanted a queen he could conquer the world with. The biggest lie society tells successful women is that our ambition will leave us lonely. Stella proved that your ambition doesn't repel good men. It acts as a filter that repels the weak ones. When you stop apologizing for your power, the hunters of the world will weed themselves out, leaving room for the Harrisons to step up. So let's take this to the comments. I want to hear your stories, and this is a safe space. Have you ever been dumped or betrayed by a guy who claimed you were too independent or too successful? Did he downgrade to someone he could easily control? And more importantly, how fast did his life implode when he no longer had your energy, your money, or your guidance keeping him afloat? There is so much power in simply letting a toxic man walk away and watching him drown in his own mediocrity. Drop your stories down below. Vent it out, validate each other, and remind yourselves to never ever lower your standards, just to make a boy feel like a man. I read every single comment. Stay ruthless, protect your assets, and I'll see you in the next one.